This is a very special Let's Talk Football here on the Sports Hacks. It's a Saturday special, a football special, we'll call it, because today England playing Norway in the quarterfinals of the World Cup in the sunshine of Miami. And in case you haven't heard, Rob Shepherd, I was in Miami recently for a World Cup game, and it is hot, 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 as the song goes. England against Norway. I'm going to bring you back to Oslo in 1993, a World Cup game that ultimately was the start of the end of England's hopes of joining the Republic of Ireland. So just throw that in there in the
Yeah.
1994 World Cup. And you and I, on the day before the match, went out for a stroll pre-press conference, and we had a very, very interesting encounter with one Graham Taylor. Tell us more.
That's one of those I was there, couldn't make it up moments. Yeah, there we were just after breakfast, walking along about 150 yards outside our hotel. There was a massive ski jump from the 1954 Winter Olympics. And there was Graham Taylor at the top of this ski jump. And there's a posse of photographers just coming. And I was, gobsmacked. So were you. I looked over at Graham, and we had decent rapport. And I just said to him, I looked down, and goodness me, you don't have to have vertigo to be scared at the top of a ski jump. I can assure anybody of that. And I just sort of said to Graham, blimey, Eddie Eagle was brave, wasn't he? Eddie Eagle being the sort of cartoon character that was in the 1988 Winter Olympics, became a cult figure in the UK. Graham gave one of them toothpaste smiles that he does, and then you chipped in with your little cheeky line of it. Looks a long way down there, Graham. And what a metaphor, what a terrible metaphor it proved, because England were on a cliff's edge the day before the game, and they were sent kicking down the hill, down the mountain slope by a Norway side the next day. Calamitous display by England, which is recorded particularly in the Impossible Job documentary, the classic Monty Python-esque fly on the wall sports documentary, which is known to most people as Do I Not Like That? And yeah, that was the beginning of the end of England's World Cup hopes for 94.
What I couldn't believe that day was that here's a manager potentially going to be under pressure because they had come from a 1-1 draw in Poland, which you and I and anybody who was there thought was a decent result in the circumstances. The manager didn't think it. He made the comments to us, if you remember, again in the huddle post that game about Paul Gascoigne's refueling. He made the comments about the fact that the England players had gone around like headless chickens before Ian Wright rescued them with their debut goal. So here's a manager who's starting to come under pressure. He hadn't really been under pressure until that point, I don't think. It was only that weekend that it all started to go wrong. And here he is standing on top of a ski slope with a bunch of photographers looking at him staring down the precipice. And it's just a headline waiting to happen. It did happen because, Norway, they had the manager, if you remember, with the Wellington boots. They had
Eagle Olsen.
That's the man. They had the striker with the big, he's as big as Bobby the Giraffe there behind you, a neck that long, Fjordcroft, who ended up at Swindon and then Barnsley. And England had this team of all the talents and lost 2-0 because the manager tinkered. Tell us how he tinkered that night, Rob.
Well, just before I go through that, he had been under pressure, obviously, after the Euros in 92.
Yeah, to be fair,
Swedes 2, Turnips 1. However, it was a new beginning, a new start, and England appeared to be on their way to the World Cup final. So that was kind of gone. Yes, the headless chickens. I remember arriving in Oslo on the flight. We flew with the team in those days, and Paul Ince, I knew well, and Ian Wright came up to me, what's in the papers the next day? And I said, well, the Sunday papers will be, well done, Ian, first international goal, super sub, all that. I said, but he's told us you're headless chickens. You played like headless chickens. And they were upset. So the psyche of the team was sort of slightly derailed. And then Taylor went and tinkered with the team because he was obsessed with Fjortoft. And he decided to go 3 at the back. And it was a hybrid 3/5. If you look at the team sheet, it could have easily been a back 4 because Lee Dixon was in the side. But he sort of played as a wing back, was out of sorts. Gary Pallister ended up playing on the right of the defence and Des Walker on the left, and both got torn apart. And the players were bemused. Furthermore, the whole Gaza refueling thing, which was coded really for what became known eventually as some, drinking problems, and at the time he kind of let the rabbit out of the hat there on the eve of the game. So subsequently, I do know the players were psychologically all over the place, and they didn't buy into the tactical changes. If England had just gone there with the attitude they showed in the second half against Poland, they would have beaten that Norway side, but they didn't. They were all over the place, and I'm afraid Graham Taylor lost the plot that night.
That was the beginning of the end, and of course, they went to Holland then, and the other bizarre thing about that documentary, which you featured in quite prominently, I was sitting beside you on the morning in Rotterdam, but the camera, thankfully, I got away with it. That video was made with his permission.
Yeah, none of us knew it was being filmed. It was, and neither did the players, or certainly in the early phase of it. There's a lot of sort of background stuff, quite unique. I mean, the cameo tete-a-tete that I had with Graham when he told me not to worry and put a smile on my face because I'd actually revealed the team, and I was shocked that morning, shocked that I'd got the story right, first of all, and then a bit relieved. And then there was a look on my face. I think sometimes I've got maybe an expressive face, talking with my face, and he spotted me and dug me out a little bit because he made changes again to the formation and the team, and it smacked of what he'd done in Norway, the tinkering he'd done in Norway, and that's why I was so exasperated. And so it proved. And again, he left Ian Wright on the bench. Ian Wright was flying at the time. They'd only 3 days later, they'd actually beaten Poland 3-0 at Wembley. And you thought you would go with that momentum, but he didn't in Holland. And that was, they needed really to draw in Holland or probably win to make the plane to the USA, and they didn't. Other things on the pitch conspired against them. There was bad luck, but actually ultimately it was bad planning by Taylor.
Tinkering Taylor, Soldier Spy would have been the headline, perhaps. But there we go. We'll move on. We will.
Not in the Daily Star, it wouldn't have been.
No. Or today. Let's move to well, actually, it might have been in today.
Yeah,
let's move to Miami, because I think Tuchel, for all the pressure that he's under, he's unlikely to make the same tinkering, is he? I mean, he may have to at right back because he's running out of right backs. And,
yeah,
well, bizarrely, Kwanzaa's suspension, instead of being squashed by President Trump, has been increased to 2 games by FIFA.
I mean, that topic is just bewildering. It's so complex and complicated. I just got to shrug my shoulders. Apparently, Reece James is possibly fit. It's a problem for England, as we highlighted a week or so ago. Trent Alexander-Arnold is somewhere in the world on a beach or yacht watching this, possibly with a cigar on, thinking, what about me? We can't look back on that. It's a really interesting point. Dan Burn came on, in the last 20 minutes against Mexico as they bolstered the back four. Konsa moved over to the right, and England. It was the Alamo. It was, talk about a cliche coming true. It was an Alamo stand by England, and Burn was quite impressive. Now his physique, is possibly one that can match Haaland's. I'm just wondering whether Tuchel might have that in mind. How do you stop Erling Haaland? Well, would it be to bring Dan Burn into the side as a second centre-half alongside Gueye, with Konsa going to right back? Or will he play 3 centre-halves?
And if Dan comes in, who loses out? John Stones?
Possibly. Or he could play all 3. That's what I'm saying. In his advantage, he's had 4 or 5 days, the longest preparation for any team for the quarterfinals, to change the defensive line. It's an option. It would be a massive gamble. But as we all know, Haaland is a really difficult player to stop. The only way that potentially you can is to cut the supply line or just cut any space. So do they crowd him out? I haven't heard any feedback from the camp here in London yet. Unfortunately, it doesn't seem the guys on the ground have the access that we used to have back in the day, where we used to. I remember in in Oslo the morning of the game. We were in the same hotel as the team, obviously, and I shared a jacuzzi with a few of the players, Martin Keown notably. That was a lovely conversation.
Please tell me there's no video.
There is no video.
In terms of Haaland, though, I mean, what strikes me with him is he's so difficult to read. I mean, if you've seen that video of the first goal the other night, and a bit like Messi, he was walking, and then all of a sudden he's gone. So it's very difficult to read him, and it's very difficult. It must be really, really difficult to mark him. But John Stones knows him. He's been with him at Man City. He knows him inside out.
Yeah, I mean, he really is a phenomenon. He looks like a character that's computer generated, almost an avatar in a certain respects. I mean, 6'5", he's got pace, but as you say, he's got that movement, that X factor. He just sort of knows where to be. I mean, in that game, actually, his second goal was wonderful, and again, he got himself into a position effectively by walking. We've seen Messi do this over the years. You know, I mean, obviously, they're completely different players. But he also has the ability to burst past people. And in a one-to-one duel in the air, he's obviously got an incredibly physical advantage over most players, which is why I then refer back to Dan Burn, because Dan Burn is virtually the same height, 6'5". It could be an interesting one, and I suspect that it's certainly something that Tuchel would have considered. If he did play three at the back, would he then maybe play Rice as a wing back rather than a right back?
As we've discussed.
Yeah, no, and I mean, but yeah, if he went down that line, it would almost be like Graham Taylor making huge contingencies for the opposition. And if it goes wrong, you're done. You know, if it goes right, you're a tactical genius. These are the calls that an international manager has to make in a quarterfinals, particularly when you've got key players suspended. If the right back area is one that is exposed this time, he will still be haunted by the fact that Trent Alexander is not there.
Is it sometimes a worry that, particularly, maybe not within the camp, but we can all get fixated with Haaland, and we can get fixated with Haaland against Kane. But, you know, for Kane to prosper, and you've made this point frequently, that, you know, he needs Bellingham on top of his game. And Bellingham against Mexico was on top of his game.
Hands up. I've got to say Bellingham has really, you know, risen to the challenge, and he's improved over the tournament. He seems more relaxed. He doesn't, in, you know, early stages, early games, he looked a bit angst-fueled, whereas there's a little bit more of a serenity about him. And also, he's playing more as a second striker now. Those runs that he's coming in, the understanding between Kane and him is getting better and better. Obviously, Kane laid on a goal for him in the Mexico game when we could have shot, you know, and that understanding and that the timing of the runs that he makes into the box is something you can't really coach. But that gives England's attack an extra dimension, which perhaps Norway don't have. Everything really is Haaland when they're on the front foot. For many seasons, for many years, it seems to have been that way with England, Kane. But now there's Kane and Bellingham, yeah. And I think that if Bellingham continues the way he's playing, that will give England the edge, because the two of them will be so hard to contain. And if effectively that England sort of morph into more of a 4-4-2. The wingers, by the way, in the last game were getting on the front foot far better, and particularly Gordon, who's a disastrous start and is now looking a player of which is worthy of playing for Barcelona.
The Spanish media may be rewriting the words, because they absolutely slaughtered him after the first couple of games.
Yeah.
Norway at the back, they wouldn't inspire confidence, would they? They are going to concede chances.
Yeah, they are. That said, tactically, my guess is that they will play with a lowish block, mid to low block, as they call it now. I suspect their tactic will be to sit back and frustrate England. They've seen how England have suffered in games, not just in this tournament, but previously. And there is this kind of Viking phobia that English teams have at tournaments against Scandinavian sides. Those teams with the Viking blood. We've seen Sweden knock England out Euro 92. We've seen Iceland at World Cups. And obviously Norway in the qualifying games back from the 94 World Cup. So there is a potential hex that England have to overcome. I think it could be a battle of attrition in Miami. But I still think it'll be Miami nice for England.
Miami nice, I like it. Finally, Rob, I mean, let's talk for a little bit about the atmosphere in England. Have the team, you've got your wish. Wonderwall is now your new England football team anthem. Have the public on the ground, so to speak, have they bought in now? Are they excited about this game?
Yeah, I mean, it's grown up. It's not quite there yet, but I suppose historically, if we do look back, the atmospheres grow and grow. There is a huge sense of anticipation. And of course, if England get through this game, they're in the semi-finals of the World Cup. And if, as we expect, Argentina overcome Switzerland, then we have a semi-final of England versus Argentina. And that will certainly get the interest of a lot of people in this country. Revenge for 86. Although, of course, England did beat Argentina in the knockout stage of the World Cup in 2002. So there is precedent there. But Argentina have Messi. But let's climb this mountain first and face the Andes next.
It absolutely is going to be a mountain. And certainly, 10 o'clock on a Saturday night is party time.
It is. I'm going to cook some chili con carne with some very nice accompaniment of Corona Zero with a lime on top, so I can actually watch the game in full focus.
I will be on Guinness Zero, as you know. Mr. Tuchel, what will he be drinking Saturday night, Rob? Call it.
Well, let's not hope it's Liebfrau milk, the worst wine in the world. Champagne, let's hope it's Champagne Supernova for England, not just Wonderwall.